The phone call came at 3:37 in the morning. Robert Matthews had collapsed in his kitchen, his body finally surrendering to the cancer that had been silently ravaging him for months. The doctors delivered the news with practiced sympathy. Stage 4, pancreatic cancer. Days, maybe a week at most. Robert had lived alone for 15 years since his wife passed. No children, no relatives left to call. But there was one family member who mattered more than anything. His golden retriever, Buddy. For 8 years, Buddy had been Robert's constant companion, his reason to wake up every morning. As the morphine dulled his pain, Robert's thoughts turned to the dog waiting at home, wondering why his human never came back. On his second day in the hospital, Robert made a request that would change everything. Through tears and labored breathing, he whispered to his nurse, "Please, I just want to see Buddy one more time." The nurse's heart broke. She wanted nothing more than to help this dying man find peace. But Mercy General Hospital had a strict policy. No animals allowed. No exceptions. The policy existed for good reasons: infection control, allergies, liability concerns. But as Robert's condition deteriorated rapidly, his pleas became more desperate. Every nurse who entered his room heard the same heartbreaking whisper, "Please, just let me see my dog." If you're finding value in this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. 7 years earlier, Robert Williams walked into the county kill shelter with no intention of adopting. He was simply dropping off supplies for the overworked staff. But in Kennel 17, a trembling golden retriever puppy caught his eye. Buddy had been surrendered that morning. His time was almost up. Robert knelt down and extended his hand through the fence. The puppy approached slowly, then pressed his tiny nose against Robert's palm. In that moment, Robert knew he couldn't leave without him. From day one, they became inseparable companions. Every morning at 6:30, they'd walk 3 miles through the neighborhood. Buddy would sit patiently by Robert's chair during every meal. At night, he'd curl up at the foot of Robert's bed, standing guard. But when Robert was rushed to the hospital, everything changed. For 3 weeks, Buddy waited by the front door. He refused to eat. He barely slept. He was slowly dying of grief. As word of James's request spread through the hospital corridors, it landed squarely on the desk of head nurse Sarah Mitchell. Sarah had enforced hospital policies for over 20 years. She'd never bent the rules, not once. But something about this dying man's final wish made her question everything she thought she knew about healing. The policy was crystal clear. No animals allowed in patient rooms. No exceptions. The liability alone could destroy careers. Sarah's mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Infections, allergic reactions, lawsuits that could shut down the entire ward. Yet every time she tried to dismiss the request, she saw the desperation in that young nurse's eyes. By midnight, Sarah made a decision that would haunt her until morning. She called an emergency staff meeting. 7 nurses gathered in that sterile conference room, each carrying the weight of an impossible choice. Sarah laid out the facts, the risks, the potential consequences. Then she asked the question that changed everything. What if we were dying? What if our last wish was to see the one soul who loved us unconditionally? The silence in that room was deafening. 7 hearts wrestling with 20 years of protocol. Then, one by one, hands began to raise. The vote was unanimous. They would break the rule. Nurse Sarah gathered her closest colleagues in the break room at midnight. What they were about to do could cost them their careers. But Robert's dying wish had touched something deep within their souls. The plan was simple, but dangerous. They would use the service elevator during the night shift change. Security guard Mike had worked there for 15 years. When Sarah explained the situation, his eyes filled with tears. He agreed to turn off the cameras for exactly 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Robert's neighbor arrived at the back entrance with Buddy. The golden retriever sensed something important was happening. Sarah's heart pounded as she led Buddy through the darkened corridors. They had sanitized the dog and covered him with a hospital blanket. As they approached room 307, Buddy began to whimper softly. The moment Sarah opened the door, everything changed. What happened next would bring tears to everyone's eyes. The moment Buddy was wheeled into that hospital room, something magical happened. Despite being in an unfamiliar place surrounded by strange smells and sounds, Buddy's focus was laser-sharp. He recognized his beloved owner immediately. Robert's eyes filled with tears as Buddy gently placed his head on the bed beside him. The dog seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. His usual playful energy was replaced by an almost human-like tenderness. Robert whispered words that would haunt everyone in that room forever. "Thank you for being the best friend I ever had. You made every single day of my life better." Buddy seemed to respond to every word, his tail wagging softly against the hospital bed. The nursing staff watched in silence as Robert's breathing began to slow. Buddy never left his side. When Robert took his final breath, Buddy placed his paw gently on his owner's chest. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even the most experienced nurses admitted they had never witnessed anything so beautiful and heartbreaking. Within 24 hours, news of what happened in room 314 reached the hospital's administrative offices. The nurses who broke protocol expected disciplinary action. Instead, they found something completely unexpected. Hospital Administrator Margaret Chen called an emergency meeting. Her words would echo through medical history. "We didn't break our rules that day. We discovered they were broken to begin with." Within 6 weeks, St. Mary's became the first hospital in the state to implement a formal pet visitation program. Trained therapy dogs began walking these halls. Cats visited cancer wards. Birds sang in pediatric units. The statistics were undeniable. Patient recovery rates improved by 37% in the first year alone. But the real transformation wasn't captured in any spreadsheet or medical journal. Word spread like wildfire through the medical community. Hospitals from coast to coast began calling St. Mary's. Within 3 years, over 400 hospitals nationwide had adopted similar compassionate care policies. Medical schools began teaching courses on human-animal bonds. Veterinary programs partnered with nursing degrees. Today, the James and Buddy Memorial Wing stands where room 314 once was. Every day, families bring their beloved companions to say hello, and sometimes goodbye. Because sometimes the most profound medical breakthroughs don't come from laboratories or research grants. They come from understanding that healing isn't just about medicine. It's about love. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button and subscribe for more.